Few Goldilock Bears podcast with Vincent Cloud.
John Nemitz.
And David Lauer.
And it's once again time to talk about loves and hates and indifferences, but they could also be things we're on the fence about, things we're ambivalent to, we're torn apart about, the gray pieces of our mind.
You're tearing us apart. Topics.
And a mystery, although probably not in this episode. I think we burnt, yeah, we got rid of all our mysteries in the last episode. So, let's go with wait, we got to do Deja Fuse though. Old topics. You heard it all before. We call it the Deja Fuse.
But before we do that, should we talk about having a Oops All Mysteries episode?
Should we?
I don't know. It would force us to get stuff that's relatable, I think. You know what I mean? Like topics that we think everyone could jump into with no research.
Okay. Oops, all mysteries. All right.
It's just
Okay.
going to be like improv topics.
Which I don't even know if I like. I like that we have everything planned out, but it could be good for me to get out of that OCD like hole and into a peg, right?
Yeah, come on, Vince, live a little.
Oh my gosh, the world is scary and dark. All right, you know what? I'm gonna do a Deja Few here. Okay, so the short story, "The Dogs Who Saved Their Master." We were kind of referencing the other dog, or like, was there any significance in those four dogs? And when I really started to think about it afterwards, I'm like, oh yeah, of course. Fours are big in Native American culture, at least in the tribes that I know. And like four directions, north, east, south, and west. Four different timelines or like ages, I guess, like child, like 20s or whatever, middle age, and then elderly, something like that. Um, the medicine wheel, there's the four directions. There's black, yellow, red, and white. But yeah, anyways, it's all about four stuff. And specifically those dogs, though, we mentioned how they were like Quickfoot, and that was like the young one. Um, whatchamacallit? Bear Killer. He's supposed to be like the 20 virile one, and then Longtooth, he's the elder one. But the one that's kind of like middle aged is supposed to be Four Eyes. So I think that's just again putting that four directions into our stories, or four always comes at us. I'm not really sure how it works, but yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, because I was really like that really struck me during the story that I'm like, there's got to be significance to that. And yeah, you're right. Like the ages of a person fits very well with the personalities of the dogs, it seems like.
Yep. And I think I just entered my Four Eyes era, so
Life is just beginning for you, as they say.
yeah, that's about it. Anything else, Dave? Do you have a damn thing to say?
Not on Four Eyes or the Four Dogs.
All right. Very reminiscent of the Lauer lightning round.
I got nothing.
All right. Well, actually, you do have something now. You got the first topic of the night.
I'm going to talk about something. I think I love it, and I think we all love them. Can't see how anyone wouldn't. I love parody movies. Like parody movies are just comedy movies. There's like different. There's ones that are like straight up, like they're kind of parodies, but they're their own thing. And then there's some stuff that's just like a parody movie. Like Austin Powers. I love Austin Powers. They're kind of a parody on James Bond movies and like the British spy movies. Um, like Naked Gun with what's his name?
Charlie Sheen.
Leslie.
Nielsen.
Oh
Charlie
Yeah.
yeah,
Sheen.
I was thinking Hot Shots.
Yeah.
That's a parody movie too, I think. I've never seen it.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
yeah. And then like Spaceballs, that's a great
Yes.
parody movie of Star Wars. Young Frankenstein. was the parody movie with Gene Wilder in it. One of my favorite parody movies is Walk Hard, a Dewey Cox story. It's one of the funniest movies I've ever seen, and it's like if you watch like the director's cut, it's super long. It's like 3 hours and 30 minutes,
Are you
and
serious?
it's just filled with tons of funny stuff, and it's they just kept recording all these funny ideas, and it was incredibly long, and but it was just everything is so funny in that movie. um Shaun of the Dead is like a zombie parody
Oh.
movie. um I think Tropic Thunder is kind of a parody movie.
Hollywood,
I'm
a
not.
parody of Hollywood, maybe? Or I don't
Yeah,
know.
and like of
That's
like the war movies, like
yeah.
Apocalypse Now and Platoon. I feel like it's kind of parodying those, but it's very borderline. I don't know. It's kind of just a comedy. I love Tropic Thunder though. But my two favorite parody movies are from when I like was in high school, and it's Scary Movie. There's like three or four of them. Scary Movie was just the funniest freaking movies ever. Um, Anna Faris is in them. She's freaking awesome. Like the Wayans brothers are in them. There's what do they call it? Cameos galore for those movies. And they kind of it's like about Scream, Friday the 13th, I Know What You Did Last Summer, Halloween, Sixth Sense, Blair Witch, like all these different like scary movies from the 90s. Like scary movie, like it was on TV, and I just like, oh, okay. And I started watching it, and I'm just like, I forgot how freaking awesome these movies are. Like the dude like mixing the mashed potatoes, Chris Elliott, I think it's, and he's got his little hand, his little deformed hand, and he's like, "Oh, let me get the mashed potatoes," and he like puts his weird little hand in the mashed potatoes, and they're all freaking out. They're like, "I don't want to eat that," and then he's like, "Here, let me carve the turkey for you. You gotta stuff the turkey, and can't forget the giblets." It is, I don't know, like that whole movie is just amazing to me. And then the other movie that I really love was what is it? Not Another Teen Movie. Not
Mm.
Another Teen Movie was brilliant because it was all about like She's All That, Varsity Blues, 10 Things I Hate About You, Bring It On, American Pie. Like they make fun of so many things, and it has Chris Evans, who he's Captain America, isn't he?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, before he
Well,
became Captain America, he did a lot of comedies. Like that's how I identify him as a comedian more than a boring ass Captain America.
now, like thinking about Scary Movie, like and then obviously it riffing on Scream. Now, is Scream like a parody horror movie? Because like it's not full on comedy, obviously, and like not a spoof, but it definitely is parodying elements of other horror movies, but in like an actually scary way, which is very interesting, like to think about. I feel like you guys have talked about Scream a lot and stuff, but
Scott and I have for sure.
okay, you and Scott, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Scream movies are great. And it's even like without the fact that they're kind of doing parodies, they're great movies. And then once you kind of rewatch them, like at least for myself, I once I rewatch them, then I started to notice like, oh yeah, this is kind of a parody of that, and this is kind of a parody of that. And it just adds like another layer to it.
But yeah, I loved like parody movies so much growing up, like Naked Gun, Hot Shots especially. And like it's funny as like I started to get into serious film more as time went on to see scenes that I had no idea that that's what they were parodying, and just to like see the original, especially when it comes as a surprise, because like sometimes like okay, yeah, they're parodying that scene from whatever, and then when you watch that movie, you're expecting it, but then other times when you're like, oh, okay, this is a real thing and this is what it is. Like that's always such a fun surprise when you're watching those movies.
Well, I also liked Scary Movie. I remember playing it to John and Jesse, like the two of you, you guys were like, bring a movie and we'll watch it. I'm like, oh, I know exactly what to watch. And you guys didn't really respond like I thought you would. Like you guys thought it was way too raunchy and stuff. Like you guys laughed at more like the lighthearted stuff, like the big popcorn or whatever. You guys laughed at that, but I just remember at the time it was a little too yeah, way too much sex and stuff. You guys just did not get into it. Maybe afterwards when you guys discovered girls or something. I don't know.
Someday I'll discover girls.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't remember that honestly. Like I remember like I don't know if that's the only time I've seen the movie because I remember the stuff that you guys are talking about with it. Um, but I don't remember that experience. That could be a whole topic is like trying to get your friends into a thing that you love and how like nerve-wracking that is or just like how disappointing it is if they don't like it. And to them it's just like a non-incident.
Yeah, that was a Tuesday for me. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
but my entire empire collapsed.
Uh, I had that
Uh,
with my wife. Tremors is one of my favorite like 90s movies. And I will always say that Tremors is one of my favorite movies. And I made her watch it and I'm like, you're gonna freaking love it. It's so funny. Like, and once it was done, she sat and watched the entire thing. She didn't complain. She just kind of watched it and she kind of laughed, when it was appropriate to. And it was over. She was dead serious. And she's like, that is one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my life. And I was just like, you're joking, right? And she's like, no, it was horrible.
wow.
I like that she laughed and it's appropriate. She has like a thing on her phone and it says like 48 minutes and 13 seconds light chuckle.
At
It was like
minute.
while I was sitting there with her, it didn't seem like she was hating it. But once it was done, she just like unleashed. And she still says to this day it's one of her least favorite movies, and she hates it.
Wow. She was like, Let me just take off this mask that I have for the world, and I'll tell you what I really felt about Tremors." Um, but the Wayne brothers, I think their better parody was the one they did before Scary Movie. It's called "Don't Be a Menace to South Central While Drinking Your Juice in the Hood." And it's just a bunch of hood movies that they parody, and it's so good. It's like a joke a minute, all these gags. So the Wayne brothers, they, Sean and Marlon, they write the script, but it's Keenan Ivory Wayans who directs all of them. And actually, oh my God, they made another one too before this. I think more of the Damon and Keenan. I'm gonna get you, sucker. That one's terrific. That's more like black exploitation 70s style, but that's really good too. Also, have you guys ever seen the Fried Chicken movie?
Kentucky Fried
Or
Movie.
is that what it is? Oh fuck. Kentucky Fried. Yeah. But it's from the same guys who made um
Airplane.
Airplane. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I watched it. I don't remember much from it. I know I've watched it for sure.
I think
Um
the Naked Gun movies was the guys who did Airplane as well.
right. Yeah.
Yeah. Zucker, Abrams, and Zucker. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Also, I have to recommend Fatal Instinct. It's like a mashup of Fatal Attraction and Killer Instinct, and it's got an actor Armand Asante, who I had no idea could be comedic, but he's so funny in this role. And yeah, just like I love about parody movies, like all the visual gags, things could be over the top, they could break the fourth wall and stuff like that. Like, oh man, parody movies are so much fun. I also recommend Return of the Killer Tomatoes. I just love that movie. That's with like a very young George Clooney. Like he didn't even get the lead. They were just like, oh, you're like the best friend. The you know, yeah. That's how like what a miss that was.
And
And Top Secret with Val Kilmer. It's really good.
yeah, there's just something about like that's the only type of movie where like just the joke density is so high that, like, you think about Airplane, there's like a joke like, like every 4 seconds or something like that. I don't know the actual numbers, but like um that like yeah, there's I guess yeah, they don't have to worry about building a plot because they're just, basing it off of existing movies or whatever. And like, oh yeah, that's good enough to like hold these jokes together. But it's really just about like how many funny things can you shove in as short of a period as possible.
I would like to write my own parody movie, but of like Native American movies, and that would be tough because a lot of them are downright sad and depressing. But um, it could be done because those movies like Menace to Society and what the Wayans brothers parodied. Those are hardcore fucking movies. I don't know if you guys ever seen those things, but they were
Mhm.
able to wring comedy out of it. So I think it could be done with movies like Smoke Signals and Skins, all these movies that I am aware of. Powwow Highway, that could be done. Segway challenge. Should we do a parody of a Segway? I don't even know. I guess not.
Yeah, no, no, we shouldn't. Need to get the writers in for that
Yeah. Zucker brothers, we are not.
one.
Okay, whoever wants to go, either you or I, John.
Go. I love the television show Chopped. Um, this is a show like I've pretty much watched like off and on since it's been on. Like, I don't know, it's been on for at least like 10, 15 years, I think. Um, my wife and I like to watch it together, and it's basically a competition cooking show, but what I like about it is there's no like personal drama or anything. You're not like watching someone like, oh, they're gonna betray whoever. There's no like metagaming or anything like that. It's just every episode it's three or no, four brand new people, and there's an appetizer, an entree round, and a dessert round. And one person gets cut after each round, and at the end, there's one person left who um, is the winner, and you, they maybe come back for like a champions tournament or something like that, but it's not like a thing. It's just who cooked the best food in this episode, and um, I watch it and like it's really fun to see the creative stuff they come up with. There's always like these ingredients that you have to use, and the basket that they get of three or four ingredients that they have to use in each dish. It's usually something really boring and then something like very challenging. So like it might be like you have to use carrots, and you also have to use like, I don't know, like canned beef heart or something weird. So then that becomes challenging. And then like in the dessert round, there's always like some like you have to use, like salmon or something, and like smoked salmon in your dessert or that kind of stuff. So it makes them have to really be creative to get all this stuff done. And as someone who doesn't eat meat or animal products, like I would never eat any of the things that they're cooking pretty much, but I still find it really fun and entertaining to just to see what they come up with, and the creativity and just the hecticness of like doing it in 20 or 30 minutes, for like having no idea what you're going to do, to getting these ingredients you have to use, and they have like a well-stocked pantry that you run to and you grab all the the stuff you need, and just what do they come up with?
John, okay, do you think you could be a judge on that show because you're like, oh, well, this person deserves it over this person, yet you don't eat the food? Do you think that would be allowed?
Oh, this smells good. Oh,
Taste isn't everything.
am I allowed to smell it as a vegan?
Or maybe, yeah, you could like just squish it in your hands, like, ooh, oh, oh man, I love Chop as well. Is it always the same three judges, or is it like uh,
No, not at all. Like there's, I don't know, a pool of like, let's say a dozen judges that they'll kind of mix and match three judges in each episode. But yeah, it's definitely different judges all the time.
the host is the dude from Queer Eye for the Straight Guy, right?
Yeah, Ted Allen, is that
I
his
don't know.
name?
He's got that
It's
dope
definitely
voice
Ted.
though, where it's like I can't even do his voice. It's so good.
He's really awesome. He's one of my favorite parts about the show is just he's like what a host should be. He doesn't like over involve himself in the show. He's just there to like present it like it's a sport. And he's just kind of like, all right, these are your ingredients, and he doesn't make the show about himself, and it he's really awesome at what he does.
Yeah, like it's one of those things where like um if you're doing it right, you don't know that he's doing anything at all. And like he's like when the judges are covering everything, then he just sits back and lets them take care of it. But if there's something that he thinks is being overlooked or that should be said, like he'll jump in and say it. Yeah, like he's very impressive as the host of that. And yeah, he's probably a big reason as to why it's successful.
I would always get inspired to just start making like, that was a old love. I like home cooking, but that just got you experimental. You're like, oh, I kind of want to challenge myself. I want to make a reduction sauce. They would always talk about the reduction sauce. I'm like, everything can be reduced. Um, there was a woman, a reoccurring judge then. She was like Indian, like from India.
Oh yeah,
And
Manit, I think is her
yes,
name.
I thought she was kind of cool. As in, I was kind of attracted to her. I'm like, I want her to eat my food.
But yeah, like the
I,
being experimental and stuff, like there's this cookbook. It was called like the Thug Kitchen or something like that, but it was like a vegan cookbook, and like their gimmick is that they're like they curse and stuff and when they're talking about stuff. And but one thing they always do in recipes is they're always like, like use like olive oil or coconut oil or canola oil or whatever the fuck you happen to have around. Like, but that's just like a philosophy there. It's just like don't get so wrapped up about like using the exact right thing that we're saying you should use.
Hmm.
Just use like cashews or peanuts or whatever the fuck. Like it just use something that's kind of in the ballpark of what we're saying and it'll turn out good. And like I just kind of apply that to like all recipes I make. Like, oh, I don't have whatever, but I have this thing which is close enough and that'll work fine.
Um, they should have a book about all the wild experiments that they made on that show. That'd be cool. I remember some stuff where I'm like, oh, that sounds so goddamn good. Like, I would love to try that.
Yeah, because sometimes the judges straight up say like, you should start making this dish in your restaurant.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, a lot of them are like chefs and own their own stuff, right? For the most part.
Yeah, or at
Oh,
least work in a restaurant or private chefs or all yeah, stuff like that.
yeah, and again, you said like, they don't like return or anything. There's not like a whole season where like one cook goes episode one, then the next in episode two. It's all episodic. It's very much like the Broken Skull Challenge by Stone Cold. It's just athletes show up and someone's gonna win in that one episode, and that's it. Like it's damn near perfect, that show. Um, yeah, love Chopped.
I I love Chopped. It's amazing.
No, I
Like
do.
I used to record it on DVR when I had like direct TV. I would DVR like every episode, and then I always had like a new episode to watch. And then like whenever it came on Netflix, and then I was like, oh my gosh, I have the entire catalog of everything. It was great. I do have a couple complaints about the show. I haven't watched it in like 5 years, but is I almost remember that like it was always annoying to me that like right before they'd go to like a commercial and they're like running down the clock and they're showing like the time like 10 seconds or something and they're like scrambling to like put it on the plate just in time, and I'm like, okay, not like these are professional chefs. They wouldn't be scrambling every single time every episode to put something on the plate in time.
But
But through the
it
magic,
gets to you though, doesn't it?
the suspense.
Yeah, like it works for me every time because I'm not like I love cooking, but I would never go enter this thing, you know? I'd be so nervous the entire time. And some people like where like they're cooking something and it's like completely flat, it's completely destroyed, and they're like, I only have like 10 minutes to come up with an entirely different thing. That's so nuts. Oh my gosh.
I
Yeah, I love
feel
it when
like
that happens.
you at least have to put on the show like you're working the whole time. Because like if if you're done cooking and there's a minute left and you're just standing there like, yep, I'm done. Like they judge you super harsh because they're like, oh really? Like you couldn't have made any improvements in that last
Oh,
minute.
right.
So like if I were the
Yeah,
judge, even if I was done, I would just be like futzing around with it and
some of those judges are assholes and like
yes.
they will judge certain things and you'll be like, what the hell? Like like it seems good. And like you're rooting for the person to win. And then all of a sudden the third judge comes up there and just like tears into him for something like that. And you're like, oh, come on, that's bogus. One
Yeah,
and another thing I didn't, go ahead.
my wife and I always pick like who do you think is going to get chopped, and like there's like certain phrases that you pick up on like, oh they said that was cooked inconsistently, and stuff that's inconsistent is usually chopped over something that is even like just undercooked or overcooked like
Oh my
in a
God.
weird way. Yeah, so we're like, oh well, that one's probably going to get chopped.
Yeah.
I didn't like with the format of like it always being appetizer, main course, than dessert, because to me, a main course is far more important than a dessert. So to name the champion based off of a dessert, it just doesn't seem right to me. And also, like I watched so many episodes that it was like, oh, they're going to the ice cream machine, and it was just like a freaking slam dunk because whatever the dessert is, like if you have good ice cream, the judges are like, "Oh, this is great. I love it." It's like it doesn't take any talent to do ice cream. You're just putting in the generic flavors and then you add in some raspberry or some maple nut or whatever, and then it's just like, "Oh, it's so good." And it's like meanwhile somebody else is making like a peach cobbler and it's like that seems like the winner, but then somehow it loses and you're like, "Oh, fucking desserts always frustrate me."
You know, in terms of anxiety when it comes to cooking, I always worry about the heat. Like, I make this great dish, I'm setting it up, and then maybe you're like trying to get people's attention or whatever, and you're just thinking about the heat going down and down and down. And in a show like that, where they're like, cut, we got to set up, we got to put lighting now. Like I would be so nervous. I'm like like warm breath on the food the whole time. You don't blow it, you know what I'm saying? That'll cool it. You go with your hot breath.
Yeah, I'm very torn because like I really want to know like behind the scenes how does it actually work? Because like I wonder like you get your dishes ready and then like let's say you're the third judge to be or you're the third contestant to be judged. Like is your food just getting cold that whole time, or like if you cooked it perfectly, but then like you're it's 10 minutes before they get to judging it, how does that affect things? But I'm also afraid if I like look too much into how it's made, is it going to ruin the show for me and I'm not going to like it anymore? So I never actually look into it.
Okay, so I've always wondered about this in terms of judging. I would imagine if I had three different dishes in front of me, they're both supposed, the same thing, right? So you take a bite of the first one, you're like, that's good or whatever, and then you take a bite of the second one. Isn't there pieces of the first one in your mouth? Like, like
Gotta
what's
cleanse
the
your palate, bro.
yeah, what's the taste memory? Like, how long does that go on and stuff? Like, I've always wondered about that because there was this like 420 festival where judges would like judge weed and they're taking hit after hit of different stuff. I'm like, how could you possibly know? Like, oh my God. Crazy.
Yeah, and like, do these judges just not have like personal preferences? Like, I fucking hate cucumbers. So like, someone could make like the perfect Mediterranean dish, and if they put cucumbers in it, I would hate it, no matter how good everything else was. And like, are the judges just able to set aside all their any personal hangups like that?
Well, never mind that. Okay, well, yeah, mind that. But say you're on the other side and you're cooking, John, and they're like, the secret ingredient is cucumbers. That's happened to people where they're like, oh, I can't work with this sort of cheese or whatever, like you would be
Yeah,
fucked.
or I've seen like vegan chefs come on and they have to like cook meat before and like, oh, I've never
Oh my
disassembled
God.
a rack of whatever before, and they're like at a disadvantage. But I mean, obviously that's what they signed up for, so you can't feel too bad up for them. But um, yeah, and then on the other hand, though, I think like if you're a professional judge, you do have some sort of like just like knowing the words of different flavors and stuff, I think somehow improves your ability to judge it because I'll get into that with my next topic too, probably. But like, um, that just by like knowing how to talk about something, it helps you like remember what it was like and help you compare it to other things because you have like the vocabulary and like the knowledge to understand like the underlying flavors and stuff.
Man. Segue challenge.
This
Uh,
topic's been
Well,
chopped.
yeah, this topic it went on too long. It ended with a fizzle, and for these reasons, we have to chop it.
yeah. It was inconsistent, this topic.
Oh my gosh, I remember one where they like kicked someone out like during before they even tasted it because they're like, "Well, we actually reviewed the tape and you nicked your finger with the knife and then continued to
Oh
use the
yeah.
knife."
Oh my
And they're
God.
like, "Because of this, you're disqualified. You've been chopped."
Literally. Or at least cut. All right. Well, I'll go next here. What else? Love and hate, I think. You know what? I hate haggling slash negotiations. First of all, I just believe to pay what people ask. They're like, hey, it's a dollar. I'm not like, I'll give you 70 cents or whatever, I'm not into that. I'm not really into confrontation. And I feel like that is one of the oddest things to have a confrontation about. I'm just like, no, just be polite and pay the man whatever they're asking for. Um, the reason why this is really popping up is because, in order to get a house, I'm approved of so many dollars, a budget. And I've been looking around. And then my mom is like, you know what? They've been saying, like, look for houses in a higher price because it's negotiable. And I'm like, God, I don't want to do that. Like I remember I negotiated with the person who sold me my last vehicle, and they're like, it's X amount of money. And I'm like, you know what? The only reason why I have to ask is because I wasn't approved for that much. I'm actually only approved for, you know, and she was like, oh gosh, oh man. And I just felt horrible. Just her just going through like, oh, I really wish. And I'm like, I really wish you wouldn't either. Like, I just felt really bad. I'm not into it at all. Um, going into fucking pawn shops is the worst because it's always the same thing, like, hey, here's I'm desperate for cash. I'm already like you're already you have the higher ground. I'm at a disadvantage here. And they go, how much you looking for? And I hate that because they're never going to give you what you want, or you might say something lower, but than what they were willing to give, but you wouldn't know that, It's just,
Right, yeah, that's like a lose-lose. Like if you say a number and they're like, all right, and you're like, oh, I know I could have gotten more than that.
and okay, so I remember a kid. I went, oh, actually, this is the same kid who bought that lakeside house, and he let us go on his jet skis. So, anyways, we're over there, and instantly we know that this guy is perhaps a little spoiled because the mom's like, hey, all right, enough video games. Now it's time for dinner or something like that. And he was like, instantly, he was like, 15 more minutes. And she's like, now Sam. And he's like, oh, come on. And he would just explain all the reasonings why he needs 15 more minutes. And he's like, just 15 more minutes. It's actually 12 more minutes, but who's counting? Like, he just kept going. And she's like, oh, okay. That's Sam for you. And my brother and I were like, we would never negotiate with our mom. Like, holy shit, we were surprised.
Don't
And
negotiate with terrorists.
yeah. And sure enough, like, later on, those 15 minutes later, she was like, all right, Sam. And he's like, 15 minutes, mom? Like, Jesus Christ. I couldn't believe it. It was like this awkward social act, performance art, that I was witnessing because I just couldn't comprehend that. And and overall, though, when they're like, oh, talk to my lawyer about that, negotiate with my lawyer, I would totally do that. I would hire a lawyer and just say, like, for the house, ask a little less or something like that, even though I'm still against it. But I guess it's what people do. What do you guys say about haggling / negotiations?
Yeah, I'm with you. I totally hate it. And I know this is like coming from a place of privilege because I do have a job where I'm relatively well paid and stuff, and I don't have to worry about everything that I will rather just pay the extra money and not care than like go through the stress of negotiating a lower price. I'm like, can I just throw money at this problem and make it go away? And like I especially think about this like, I've been to like India and stuff where like haggling culture is a real thing and like it's expected of you and
Oh,
like
really?
the price that they tell you, they never expect you to pay for something. But it's just like so like not worth it for me. And I know they probably think I'm like some stupid American or whatever that I paid full price, but it's like, oh, that's this beautiful handmade scarf and your opening offer is like $5, like however many rupees it is or whatever. Like I'm just gonna pay that. Like I like I don't care if I could get it for 3. Like that's way less than I could get anything even remotely similar to that for at home. So I'm not gonna like go back and forth with you to try and negotiate it. And I don't care if it makes me look bad in your eyes or whatever, but whatever.
Wow. So that little thing in the movie Life of Brian, where it's like, come on, haggle with me. He's like, no, I just want to, I need to buy the beard that this guy's like, no, that's not how you do it. That's real somewhere.
Yeah,
Wow.
for sure.
That's crazy.
I think I did that when I was in Mexico. I'm like laying on the beach, like in front of the resort, like right by the ocean. And this dude walks by and he's got like a rack of t-shirts and tank tops. And I was like, I need to buy a shirt here while I'm in Mexico. And this, like, I'm just sitting on the beach drinking a margarita, and this guy's walking by with t-shirts. I'm like, this will be my perfect opportunity to get a t-shirt. And I was like, I'm like, hey, I'm like, let me look at those. And he comes by and he starts showing me all the shirts. And I'm like, the first one that was on the outside was white in color and the letters were all in silver and it just popped in the sunlight. It was so bright and like clean looking. I was like, I want that one. I went, how much you want for it? And he said, however many pesos. And I don't totally know the conversion rate, but I do know that like a peso is worth less than $1. So if he says 20 pesos, I'm like, well, that seems cheap to me. I'm like, okay, there you go. Like, I was not gonna negotiate. And who am I to negotiate with this guy? Because I'm on vacation at a resort in Mexico. I'm sure that I make more money than this guy. So why would I want to short him out of money for a t-shirt? Like it's just a t-shirt. And I'm like, I'll pay whatever you want me to pay. Like as long as I have it on me and it seems reasonable, I'm like, I have no problem. Um, like with other types of negotiating, I kind of hate it too. What I generally will do is if it's like a negotiating situation, they're like, "Oh, we want, the car is this much." And the first thing I say is like, "Well, I'll give you this much." That's the negotiation. I'm giving you my best offer right here. I'm like, I'll give you this much. If you'll take that, we have a deal. But then they'll like come with a counter offer, and I'm like, no, 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 no. We're not negotiating. That was my offer. That's it. Final. Like that's the first offer I come with is what I will pay you.
Yeah,
First offer, best offer.
when I see OBO on anything, I'm like, oh no, it's terrible. I don't want to offer my best offer. I'm not even gonna try it. No thanks.
And like until like the most recent car I bought, I've only bought cars from like um private owners. Like someone had a car on the side of the road and you go and talk to them or whatever. So I've always felt more on an equal footing with negotiating or whatever. But like I bought my first car from a dealership and I just went in there like just knowing that like I have no leverage. They're talking to however many people a day. They sell however many cars a month. Like I buy a car once every 10 years or whatever. Like I'm completely at the disadvantage. Um, I'm not even gonna pretend like I'm gonna walk out of there having gotten the better end of the deal. And like I was just happy that like made sure to get like the warranty in writing that and then that actually paid off because there was issues with the transmission then like 2 weeks after I bought it and then they
Whoa.
like repaired it like free of charge because it was part of the contract. So like that that made me feel good. But the weird thing is like I don't feel bad about overpaying for something, but I just feel bad about being taken advantage of. You know what I mean? Like or like it's worse to like have to tell someone how much you paid for something than it is to like actually do the paying, if you know what I mean. Like I just don't want to feel stupid in front of my friends that I overpaid for something, even if I don't care that I overpaid for it personally.
Don't like talking money in front of friends at all. I don't. I actually, could money be a topic? I mean, Pink Floyd made a whole song about money, and I think I can add a few things.
Yeah, I feel the same way about like I'll pay whatever like to avoid the inconvenience of that because it even reminds me of Black Friday sales where like, oh, this stuff is super cheap, but I think I'd rather just pay full price. That way I can avoid the crowd. I can like just buy it at my convenience. I don't have to wait for a certain day or a certain week of the year to buy it. I'm like, if I want to buy a TV in October, I'll just buy one in October. I'm not gonna like, well, I'll wait a month and save some money.
I don't know if this counts. Maybe it does. But behind me is the cover for In Rainbows by Radiohead. And they infamously or famously released it online as a pay what you want. And I remember I was like, that's outrageous. But I think I gave them like as much as what a typical CD would have been at that time, you know. But I was also like, man, I could have just like got that shit for free. But I. I love the band, so I paid up. But that's a little negotiation.
Yeah,
Negotiation? Yeah.
that's a good one. Yeah, there's a restaurant that I go to that has like a dish that they call the community bowl, which is pay what you want. So like, if you're having tough times, you can come in and eat that thing for free essentially. And
Oh,
then in theory it's, subsidized by other people who want to help out or whatever, which is interesting.
but you all have to drink from the same bowl. That's interesting to me. I smell a health code violation. Yeah. No, I imagine like a big trough. Like people go in there. Anything else for haggling? If not,
Um,
oh,
like I felt like with getting a house, I didn't really feel like it was haggling or negotiating at all. I feel like my real estate agent kind of like presented it to me in some way and I just wasn't having it. It was like, this is what I'm offering. Like at the time, it's like, well, I have to cover the closing costs because that's just the norm of what everyone's doing. That's fine. I'm like, this is what my like I have this as a budget and I'm like, so I'm gonna like I offered them my best offer and that was it. And it was and she's like, well, you can have them like try to fix the door or some of the faucets for the hose outside, or maybe fix the tile in the bathroom. And I'm like, no, I'm not negotiating. I'm like, if there's broken tiles on the bathroom floor, I don't care because I'm not gonna let a stupid thing like that prevent me from getting a house. Like, I don't give a shit about bathroom floor tiles. Like, I'll pay you this much. Like, this is, I don't know. It's just like a gentleman's agreement. There's no reason to do like little nitpicky things when it's a very large stakes offer.
uh, segue challenge.
Oh, can we please just have 15 more minutes of this topic?
Oh, that's our job. All right, go ahead, Dave.
I have something that I'm on the fence about, and it's a gift that we get during the holiday season. It's gift cards or gift certificates. I'm on the fence about them. Like part of me is just like, yeah, I love them. Like just it's like cash, but it's for a certain store, so it's a little bit more personalized. But at the same time, like you can get a gift card to like anywhere. And I went to like a birth or a Christmas party, and it was what I got was a gift card to Krispy Kreme, and I was like, Krispy Kreme. I'm like, I I don't want a gift card for donuts. I'm like, that's a terrible idea. Um, and also like Walmart. If I get a gift card to Walmart, it's like, yeah, I can go grocery shopping there. It's usually where I do my grocery shopping. But like, do I want to spend my Christmas present on just groceries? Like it's like, yeah, I could just buy something from the electronics section, but I don't know. I'm like, I'm probably just gonna buy $100 worth of groceries and take my $25 gift card and put it in the machine and do it that way. Um, so it's like it's kind of a good thing, but at the same time, it's just like as a gift, I'm like, I don't know. There's not a whole lot of like thought into it. I don't know. I'm on the fence because like I don't hate it, but I don't love it, and I kind of get bored by a lot of the things where it's like, oh, you got one for a gas station, and I can get gas, and it's like it helps with like if I'm short on cash. There was a time like where I needed it, where it was like, yes, I need gas money, and it was a good gift then. But like now, I don't really need gas money. That's not my big concern. Like I appreciate now as a gift. I would much appreciate getting something where I'm like, oh, I would never treat myself to that normally, so I would like to have a gift card to that. Like if I got a gift card to like a shoe store that sold nice shoes, I'd be like, hell yeah, that's a great gift.
Yeah, it's kind of like, is it better than the present where they're just like, here's cash? Like that's even less thought put into it. You know what I'm saying? So like instead of giving you cash, you're like, here's like $50 to Festival Foods or something like that. Which, by the way, Dave, I recommend you go for your groceries over Walmart. Yes. And
Darkness.
yeah. But like, what about you, John?
Um, if it's a very targeted gift card for something that
Like
is,
Target?
yeah, like Target, like that is purely like a luxury or just a fun kind of recreational buy, then I like it. Like my parents, because of my wife, like she told them like, oh, here's like a record store he really likes. Like you should get him a gift certificate for that. And like that was cool because then it let me buy something like I had to use that for something fun, but they didn't have to know what music I like or that type of thing. But on the other hand, like one that kind of backfired is they got me a gift certificate for like an escape room place, which would have been fun, but it's something you do with a bunch of friends. And then like I ended up not using it, and the place like went out of business a little later. But like I had to convince all my friends to like, oh, do you guys want to do this thing that you all have to pay for, but mine would be free because my parents got me a gift certificate for it. Um, and then like thinking of the gas card one, like I got a gift certificate for Quick Trip once, which I don't think there's one, or at the time there wasn't one within 20 miles of the Twin Cities or whatever. So I'd have to like remember to use it on a road trip or something.
So here, drive 20 miles out of the way and buy gas to drive yourself back.
Well, the other thing is, I would prefer to see the face of the giftee when they get the gift card over giving them a present they thought they would like and see them read that. No, that's they
Yeah.
they had other ideas. They would prefer something else. So, yeah, I mean, gift cards, that's maybe I should do that this year. I've been really wanting to like be a gift guy. I want to try that out. Like good old Uncle Vince, he gave a gift. So maybe I'll just do a gift card just for starters. Yeah.
You do have the gift of gab.
Yeah. Where's the credit thing for that little gift card? Anything else? Segway challenge? Instead of the Segway challenge, here's a card to buy a Segway. Yeah, there you
One segue, redeemable sometime in the future.
go. John, go ahead.
I am indifferent to wine. And I know you listeners out there are like, didn't you already talk about being indifferent to alcoholic beverages? Well, I'm not even going to talk about the fact that wine is an alcoholic beverage.
Oh,
It it's more like the like so I don't hate it. Like I enjoy the taste of wine, and I've actually like started bringing wine in addition to whiskey on my camping trips and stuff, that even though it doesn't pack quite the same punch as whiskey, it's more pleasant to just sip on it or whatever over the long term. But i I just can't understand like what people are tasting when they taste wine and they talk about all the subtle
yeah.
flavors and like all the intricate notes and the bouquets and all this stuff. And like, um, I do feel like I get it when it comes to beer. Like I can drink a beer and I can be like, oh, I can taste the malt flavors or the hops or, um, like those kind of things. And, like just by taste, I can tell you if it's like a stout or an IPA or like a Maibach or, like that kind of stuff. But I just feel like wines just all taste so similar to each other that I like. I'm not going to say people are lying, but I just don't understand what they're getting out of it. Like, what am I missing that they're seeing or tasting?
Yeah, I mean, is it possible that your palate isn't there? Like it's not as that developed? Although you could do the beer thing, so yeah, that's weird. I don't know.
See, that's what a wino would like argue is like, well, you don't have a refined palate. But it's that kind of like hoity-toity looking down on everyone attitude that is my problem with them.
I do have to say, between the two, I go with white over red. Red is dry to me. White is kind of creamy. Um, actually, what is it called? Is it pink Zinfandel or something? It's like I think it's looked down upon, but I actually like that where it's like right in the middle. It's like a mix, I think.
Yeah. It's white Zinfandel and it's pink in color. So it's yeah.
Yes, that's right.
There's rosé, which is like a mix of red and white, I believe.
Oh,
Also,
really?
yeah.
Hmm.
Okay.
But
See, I gotta learn this stuff eventually, I
see,
feel.
this is where Vince, you have a really unsophisticated palate because I've been drinking red wine this whole time, and red wine is clearly superior to white wine because of the bouquet and the nose and yes, I might be drinking it out of a water glass. And actually, just today, by coincidence, on there's a like a local TV show called Twin Cities Live, and they literally had a wine expert on telling you how you should be drinking different types of wine out of different glasses because it changes where the wine hits your tongue and you're better able to um, taste the flavors that wine is putting forward than if you drank it out of the wrong glass.
Nice. I kind of believe that. Yeah, wine must be like this certain animal that either you get or you don't. But I haven't tried enough wine. Like I remember when I had these roommates, these two ladies, and at first I was into red, and they're like, Vince, you're gonna spill that. And I'm like,
I love that. That's the concern.
and they're like only white wine in this house. I'm like, oh shit, all right. So maybe by default I'm a white wine, but again, white Zinfandel, man, yeah, the classiest.
I feel like I'm like too much of a skeptic. Like if somebody tells me like, "Oh yeah, you have to have a certain type of glass to enjoy a certain type of wine," I just feel like they're trying to sell me a different type of glass, and I'm like, I'm not buying a different type of glass. I'm like, I'm gonna drink it out of my milk glass that I have in the cupboard.
With milk still in it.
Like I don't know, but like I know with like beer, like if you drink beer out of a can versus drinking it out of a bottle or drinking it on tap, you
Yeah.
can have the three beers and you get three different flavors based off of what you're drinking it out of. Um, but I feel like if you're drinking wine, it's coming from the bottle, so even if you put it in a different shaped glass, I'm still swishing it around in my mouth. I'm still gonna do the little smell thing. I don't know. I don't feel like it would change that. Like I feel like if you stored the wine in a bag versus a bottle, then I buy that there's a flavor difference.
Could you
And
answer? Oh, real quick. I need this to be answered. When people slap the bag, what is the point of that, Dave? We've been to parties where they're like, "Hold on, you gotta slap the bag. We got a newbie here. He doesn't know to slap the bag." I'm like, "For why?" Maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know.
It's just fun. It feels good on your hand. It's kind of
What?
weird.
I got nothing out of slapping that bag.
I enjoy it.
Well, maybe my hands aren't as fully developed and I can't appreciate a good slap.
Maybe you start with the back of your hand. It's a little less
Oh.
intimate, and then you graduate to using the palm of your hand.
Uh, See, I was hitting it
But
with my wrist more, so maybe that's not much of a puncher.
never heard of slapping a bag of wine before.
It's so stupid. Although, again, maybe it's not. Maybe wine is like a
Meant to be
slinky.
slapped.
Yeah. Okay,
There's just a lot
women.
of snobbery with wine in general. Like I was on a work trip a while back and we were at a Mexican restaurant and I was just like in the mood for a glass of wine. So, that's what I ordered. And um my coworker is sitting next to me like, how's the wine? I'm like, oh, it's actually really good. And he's like, oh, I haven't heard of a lot of good Mexican wines. I'm like,
Oh my
okay,
God.
fine.
Oh, I thought he was like, that wine does not go with a burrito or something like that. Like, isn't that the other thing? Like wine and cheeses. See, again, I think it's a real thing. We're just so it's too bad that those who enjoy wine do come off that way, very snobbish and stuff. But maybe that's something to get into. Um, a
But
lot of
like
women
on
love their
that
wine.
regard, like cheeses, like yeah, I've had a lot of cheeses back in the day, and I can tell a lot of differences between them. Like, like they they're very obviously have um different flavors and textures and everything, but the wines that accompany them all taste very similar to me.
I feel
Uh,
like the whole like wine culture and like the whiskey tasting culture, I feel like it just I just think that they love to drink it. It's their favorite alcohol to drink. And they're like, well, if I'm going to do it all the time, I might as well just make it a hobby. And I'm going to be an expert at it. And, you can go on YouTube and find all these different videos of these wine people. They're like, oh, try this one and this one, and this one's really good. And then it introduces them to new wines to try, and it makes it interesting for them to drink. Where like me, I'm just like, just give me a Coors Light. Like I don't care. Like I don't need to like broaden my horizon of tastes and try different kinds. I'm just here for the meat and potatoes of it. Like I just want the effect of the alcohol and nothing more.
And I feel like they've done like studies where they basically clown on wine experts and they like do blind taste tests and they'll just like do like expensive wines and really cheap wines and the experts get it wrong. Like it just makes me very skeptical of the whole thing.
let's mention the women out there. They really like wine. I feel like if anything, getting to know wine, at least to know your wine a little bit, would help when engaging with the females, the ladies, because they're way more into it than I am. Like if they were like, "Oh, let's get some wine," I'm like, "All right," but I have no idea what I'm doing. Are you guys are married? Are your wives winos? They're like, "Don't even talk to me until I had my 8 a.m. wine." They're like, "This is supposed to be coffee." Drunk.
No, can't say that she is.
No, Brooke is not.
All right, good.
But oh yeah, another ritual that is fascinating to me is like when you go and this has only happened to me on work trips, but like you go to a fancy restaurant and someone, not me, picks out the wine and they order it and then the waiter comes over and pours a little in the glass for them and they swirl it around and then taste it and like, oh yeah, yep, that's okay. And then they'll, you know, pour it for everyone on the table. I had one coworker who they did that and he's like, oh no, this is unacceptable. And the waiter's like, oh, I'm so sorry. He's like, oh no, I'm just kidding. I just always wanted to say that.
Oh, that's awesome.
Fascinating.
I've always wanted to know a little bit more into the like, oh, this year, this is a good year.
Oh yeah, yeah.
What does that mean? Does that mean like all wine from 77 are the best? You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't get that at all.
I think it's the variety and the year. So like, these grapes were from such and such region in California or France or wherever, and from whatever year. So like supposedly like how much rain there was that year in that region will affect the flavor of the wine when it's made and all that stuff.
Wow.
I honestly, I always thought they were kind of just saying it sarcastically. And they were just like, oh, yes, 72, that was a good year. Because, like, in 72, they were, 20 years old and, they just have the memories and they're just looking at that year. They're like, oh, yeah, the good old days. This is a good year.
Oh man. That's a whole new world. I think I wouldn't be against learning more though, because I think there must be something more to learn. I wouldn't mind like detect the notes of stuff. That'd be cool. Or it could be cool. I don't know. Challenge.
This is a good year for a new topic.
All right. I will close shop with my love. I love either it's abandoned buildings or exploring abandoned buildings. It has to be exploring because what's the point? Like so I love exploring abandoned buildings. This was a habit or something to do. John and I we did this in high school. Um, I think what was the first one? Did we start off with like the pancake house or whatever whatever that was called?
Yeah, I think that was baby's first abandoned building.
But then we graduated to like an abandoned insane asylum. Not my words for it, but that's what they were called back in the day. And that was in Marshfield. That was out of town, and that was so much fun because it was like a three-winged building with like what, four levels, maybe five. There
Yeah.
was like the basement, and then we also got on the roof. That was awesome. And exploring that was so much fun. Even though there was a cop, wasn't there like a gas refill thing for cops like right outside that
Oh, that's right.
building?
Yeah.
So we explored and had as much fun as we wanted to, but we also had to be really quiet. So we didn't really vandalize. That wasn't really our style. Um, Sometimes though, like I remember I explored some after graduation and I met Dave and I think I took Dave along and some other people and we were exploring a house, a farmhouse. And then some neighbor who's not even like a direct neighbor, but like across the roads, he showed up. He's like, get out of there. And the whole thing was like, what do you care? It isn't your house and we're not and it was really bad off like I think it was missing a wall or something like who cares if we're in there
Yeah.
yeah um and sometimes it's spooky because it's almost all at night. I would love to do some day explorations, but it was mostly spooky for me just because I was like, oh my God, there's going to be a bat. I know it. Like, that was a big dread when it came to doing this stuff. But overall, I think it's just so good. It's the closest you'll feel to like being in a post-apocalypse. You could explore things that was a lived-in place, but no longer. So yeah, what do you guys think about exploring abandoned buildings?
Like Vince, I remember you, it had to have been your idea, I feel like, but we were like downtown Eau Claire, and this is not an abandoned building. This was a building that was under construction because they were building it,
It was the
but
hospital.
yeah, it was the new hospital they were building, and it's all taped off. It's under construction still, but they're like, we're walking by, and I think you're just like, you guys think that door's open? We're like, no way, it's got to be locked. You walked up, you like turned the door handle, you're like, oh, it's open. He's like, and there's lights on inside. And then you just like walk inside, and we're like, And then somebody else walks in. I'm like, okay. And then, like, and then I just walk in, and I'm like, where is so? And like, some of you guys were walking ahead and just exploring, and it's just, it's all just like fresh drywall and paint and plastic on the ground, and but it was, I don't know, it was interesting. But then when we walked out, there was a cop there, and he's like, where, what are you guys doing? And we're like, oh shit, we're gonna go to jail for trespassing. And then Vince, you're like, don't worry, let me handle this. You're like, just act super drunk and be like, do you guys know where Water Street is? And I'm like, this is a terrible idea. Don't act drunk. You're already trespassing. Don't have two things going on. And then they're like, yeah, it's down that way. And you're like, thanks. And just start walking away from the cop. And somehow it worked. And we were fine.
That's his improv background right there.
Yeah, it works.
Uh,
Yeah, I love that stuff. Like, and just going through like farmhouses and stuff, I feel like we'd always find like somehow Jesse always knew like where they were. And um it was always bizarre because it was always like people were living there one day and then the next day they were gone. Like it wasn't like they were empty houses that people had moved out of. It was like full of people's stuff. And I remember in one house we found like a pill bottle that had Matt's grandpa's name on it or something like that. Do you remember that out in the
oh my
country?
God.
Yeah. Um, I I regret that we like never took like photographs or anything of these. Like we just, I mean, I guess it was cool just being there in the moment and experiencing it, which is something you can miss out on with photography. But it would be cool to have just like photos of all these weird and interesting places that we had visited. I remember beyond like houses and the asylum and stuff. Were you there the time that there was that grain elevator in Neilsville and we just went up and we like climbed on, I don't know if you call it a catwalk or whatever, but like the you climb up the ladder and there's like the little ramp or whatever that connected the two things together. And we were just hanging out on there and then like these cops drove by underneath and they were like shining lights around and we just kind of like sat perfectly still and like after a few minutes they went away or whatever. But um that was I think after we had graduated from high school we had done that.
Yeah, and slowly we were like, oh man, we're getting too old for this. Like, there's a couple of times that we could have got caught, but we were teenagers, and now we're just like, oh God, we're in our 20s, and like, this is not going to look good if we're caught. Actually, the last time I did do any of that, and it's kind of half abandoned, Banbury Place in Eau Claire.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Jesse and I, we were climbing around there, exploring the space. It was a lot of fun, although there was a security person on guard or on station or whatever. But I think he just sat in his little spot the whole time. Uh, but yeah, I think Jesse and I were like, no, we're probably too old to be doing this. So we were kind of like, yeah, this might be the last time we ever do that. And I think it might have been. Yeah.
No, Vince, you took me to Banbury Place because we were gonna explore it because you're like, it's like abandoned. It's like this old abandoned place. But then we showed up there because I don't think like neither of us realized that they had like refurbished it and put in a bunch of small businesses. And we're like walking around and there's just people and they're like, hello, hi there, how you doing? And there's just like offices, there's signs everywhere, and like I'm like, oh crap. I'm like, they have a little business where they sell baked goods. Oh wow. Okay. And it was just like, oh, I thought this place was abandoned. It's like, I think we're in the wrong building or something. It was around here somewhere.
Um, oh, and then, yeah, I guess it was never meant to work with you in abandoned buildings. Because remember, I took you and my ex at the time to Marshfield to that insane asylum, but it was demolished down by then. That was crazy.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, speaking of that asylum, so that was exploring buildings was sort of our thing, John, in our little group. But then Brad, he was hanging out with us, and he decided to come along, and we found the asylum, and we were like, whoa, what if we like rig this place up like a Scooby-Doo show, and we'll like pretend it's haunted, and we'll get people to show up, and we'll make noises, and like we'll spray shit on the walls, which we did all of that. And Brad's like, oh my God, yeah, and there's a party going on at Chad's. I'm gonna go over there, get some people, and we'll come back and we'll scare them and shit. And we were like, yes. And we came up with all this stuff. Like we had this oven on the top of the staircase that would drop and just crash and make a loud ass noise. And we're all sitting there, we're like, planning and stuff. And then Brad shows up like, I don't know, half an hour to 45 minutes later. And he's like, yeah, nobody wants to explore an abandoned building. We're like, why? Why not? They're like, they said they'd rather get drunk and laid. Like, God damn it.
Weird.
And finally, though, there's some video on YouTube. More than one channel does this, where they just explore abandoned malls. And it's really cool. And actually, what's stopping me from doing it? Because it's like, I thought what we were doing was pretty illegal. These people are posting and getting views. So what the F, John? Do we get back into it? Do we return?
Just when I thought I was out, you pulled me back in.
Gang reignites a passion.
Yes. See, I'd rather watch that than fucking ghost hunters, exploring abandoned buildings. That could be a hit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else?
In a way, I mean, I think this is, we talked about it, but when I was talking about being behind the scenes, it's like an abandoned building is the ultimate behind the scenes because like you can go wherever you want in there and see how it operated and just remember like the weird stuff you would find like at the asylum. Wasn't there like a bowling lane and that kind of stuff, and just like walking around the kitchens and stuff and just trying to piece together how it used to work and stuff was always fascinating too.
Oh, wasn't the basement flooded? Do you remember that?
Yeah, and like um wasn't there a farm nearby and it was supposedly connected to the asylum building by tunnel or something?
Right. Jesse had
And
us looking for a tunnel. Yeah.
yeah, and like supposedly that was how they got to, like, they would work on the farm and go there through the tunnel or whatever. I don't know if that was true or not.
Yeah. Crazy shit. Um, Shenanigans, that's what it was.
I
Um,
know
oh,
there was, I don't know if this qualifies, but there was this like old mansion in Duluth that's right on Lake Superior. I don't remember the name of it, but it's super famous because like the heir to it, she ended up getting murdered there, like in the 60s or 70s. Um, but you can go on a tour of it, and it's abandoned basically, but it's not because like everything is like original. All the furniture, all the books on the shelves, like everything is the exact way that it was, and it's been preserved. So it's like going back in a time machine. Like you can look at the kitchen, and it's like the old kitchen from 100 years ago. And you can see they have like a bedroom that's right off the kitchen where the chef, like or the cook, they slept in these quarters right there that was attached to the kitchen. And then like you can go into the bedrooms and they have like these old showers, and it's like this was super fancy for 100 years ago, and like you can see how they got hot water, and there was like a knob that you would pull on, or like almost like a telephone or something, and you could call down and be like, "Hey, I need hot water in my shower." And there was a guy in the basement who would turn the knobs and connect the hot water up to a certain pipe, and then you would get hot water on that level. And it was like they like showed you how everything was done back then. It was like the super luxurious stuff. And it's like, but there's no one there anymore. And I know that like all these, they show you pictures on the wall of all the people who used to live there. So it was like this weird, like haunted, like mystery, like, and like you knew that like people had died there and there was so much history to the house, but it was like, it was cool. It was very interesting.
I they should really give a lot of these spaces to the unhoused. I'm sure they could do something with it, you know? Like, oh, sure, maybe some windows are broke and there's a bit of a mess, but that could be cleaned and, you know, I'm sure they would prefer, well, actually, I don't know, but I would prefer an abandoned house over being in the street somewhere. But I don't know the struggle.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I
then that
think
gets into the
that's
whole thing about like legal liability and oh, I'm gonna get sued because I tried to do something nice and that kind of stuff that everybody worries about.
yeah, there's in the town I live in, there's like a country inn and suites, like a hotel, but it's abandoned. Like they closed shop on it, they boarded up the windows, and it's just this building. And I'm like, it's a giant hotel. It's got to have like 50 rooms or 100 rooms in there. Nobody's using them. Like, why would like somebody should be able to live there? It's I don't know. It's just like a waste of space, and like the building is still there, and it's been like I've lived here for like 4 or 5 years and it's nobody's ever touched it. So it's like kind of in a state of disrepair, but like when it was still open, you could have sold like put it to some use so that way it didn't like just fall into rubble basically.
Yeah, but then it's like all that you're paying for the land, right? Like commercial lot to have like I know that because there was this building like a little laundromat or whatever. It used to be a laundromat, but it was no longer there or nothing was going on. And I'm like, how much is it to like I would just live in a store. That sounds great. How much is rent? So expensive. You have to form a business, otherwise you'll be yeah, you'll be in ruins immediately. So, all right. Is that the show? Should we abandon the show?
Yeah.
In ruins immediately, you say.
Go to a few goldilockbears.com. I was Vincent Cloud.
I was John Nemitz.
And I'm David Lauer.